Tell me, what's the creepiest experience you ever had in your life?
Okay, so most of us have heard of the legend of Mary's grave. And if you are familiar, or if you're not, one of the legends that is associated with Mary's grave are all of the urban legends connected to Sweet Hollow and Mount Misery Road. The story involves the overpass on Sweet Hollow Road that was said to have been the place where 3 boys hung themselves in the 70s. And it's not my story, it's a story that had happened to a friend of mine a while back, but it shook me to my core. Essentially, this person I used to be friends with went to the graveyard on Sweet Hollow Road with some friends one night, and they were trying to find Mary's grave. I know it's disputed whether or not the grave is even there, but that's irrelevant. So they were walking around in the cemetery, and they came across these 3 teenage boys. But the way I remember her describing it was that they were kind of startled by these boys, and I believe that she said that they were sitting behind a few headstones, so they were kind of hidden. The boys got up and they ended up talking to them, but what she said stood out and was really strange was that I think one of them was wearing a tie-dye t-shirt, and they didn't look like they were from modern times. And mind you, this was, I want to say, in the early 2010s, like maybe 2013, 2014. But they looked, she said, almost like they were straight out of the 70s, and it was 3 boys. So they hung out with these kids for the rest of the time that they were in the cemetery. And, I don't remember all the little details. But the craziest and scariest part of the whole story was that they all left together, and the boys were walking behind this ex-friend of mine and her group of friends. They were walking like a few feet behind them out of the cemetery. And all of a sudden, they heard this high-pitched screech that she said, I remember, didn't sound human. And they turned around after that, and these boys were gone. They were nowhere to be found. So obviously after that, she and her group of friends booked it to the car. The craziest thing I've ever experienced when I've been there is seeing lights in the woods. I would have had a heart attack if I had this experience. I'm curious to know what your craziest experience, if you've been there, has been, and if you think that these boys did this intentionally because they knew what it would look like, or if it was real. Let me know your thoughts.